Last week, we were in Galatians 6, talking about the spirit of meekness. And that came off of 3 weeks of looking at the Parakletos, the Holy Spirit Comforter, in John 14, 15, 16. So we kind of like been in that vein, and coming off of the spirit of meekness, like we said last week, that Paul presents the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5, and then refers to the spirit of the fruit, if you would, the spirit of meekness. And the message all had to do with reconciliation and restoration. It led us to Moses, where in Numbers 12, verse 3, it says that he was the meekest guy on the earth at that time, which is quite a statement. And we looked at very quickly how it's that same chapter where he intercedes for his brother and sister after they've done something horrendous. And I said that we're going to spend the next few weeks looking at the fruit of the Spirit in a little different of a way. I'm going to refer back to an Old Testament saint in relation to whatever the fruit is. In the list, in Galatians 5, the first one that Paul lists is love, when he lists the fruit of the Spirit. So we're going to do love today, which is beautiful because it's Mother's Day. I can't think of a better word to use when we think of mothers, whether they're our own or a mother in general. If you ask anybody, the love of a mother is unique on this planet. It's something else. It's just something else. So we're going to take the Old Testament saint Ruth. The Old Testament saint, Ruth. Who wants to start us off telling us about the story, with the story of Ruth? There's a famine in the land. Naomi's husband decides to take him and his family down to Moab, where they have food and stuff like that. That's where Ruth is from Moab. So as time goes by, Naomi is the mother-in-law of these two Moabite women, Ruth being one of them. So there's marriages that take place, and you've got Ruth as one of the daughter-in-laws, and then the husband dies, the two sons die. So now you've got Naomi, Ruth, and the other daughter-in-law. That's all in chapter 1.
Naomi goes back to her people, and Ruth, rather than staying with people where she grew up with, and she went with her husband's people, says, my people are, your people are my people.
And the other daughter-in-law didn't. She decided to stay.
How do things go when she gets back to Jerusalem? Well, actually it's Bethlehem, but...
Not well. They're hungry again. She's gleaning in the field of a guy named Boaz, right?
Her mother-in-law instructs her on what she should do and when to stay only in this field, and what to glean and when to glean and all that. And she does everything, and then she's instructed to go to Boaz and ask if he will take her to his wife.
That's good. I mean, that's basically the story. And what I'm going to be doing is taking a verse from each chapter that demonstrates what I'm just calling the love of Ruth. That's all. So there's 4 chapters, 4 points. If somebody would read in the very first chapter, verse 14.
And they lifted up their voices and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her.
Exactly. So that's the scene that when we were talking about it earlier, where Naomi is encouraging her daughter-in-laws to stay in Moab. They're Moabites. Stay where you were born, and you know the terrain. Stay in Moab. I mean, you going to follow me? I'm too old to have children now. But even if I had a couple more boys, are you guys going to wait until they're old enough to marry you? I mean, Naomi's trying to encourage the 2 girls, and Orpah, the one daughter-in-law, as Mary just read, kissed her. But what did Ruth do? There's a big difference between kissing and clinging in a marriage. The marriages that do make it are when they get beyond the affectionate kind of kissing, which is nice. Kissing's great, don't get me wrong. But clinging is a different story. I ain't letting go. We've got stories, Elijah and Elisha, before Elijah's going to be taken up, and Elisha says, I don't care what happens, I'm with you. You can't shake me. And Elijah's trying to tell Elisha, you don't want to make this journey. And he said, well, whatever, I'm going with you. Where you go, I'm going. Which are the same words that Ruth uses with Naomi. Your people are my people. Naomi could have said, no, they're not actually. I'm a Jew. You're a Moabite. We don't share the same people. What she's saying is, I'm not identifying with being a Moabite. Your people are my people. Where you go, I'm going. Simple as that. You may remember Jesus at the tomb with Mary Magdalene. He has to literally tell her, don't cling to me. because she's clinging on to him in the situation at that point. She doesn't want to lose him. Clinging is a beautiful kind of picture, but the point I want to make for number one when it comes to love is that love is unconditional. Now, I know we know that. We hear that all the time. You know, the agape love and unconditional. But this is really unconditional. If you look at Ruth, Ruth has absolutely nothing to gain by following Naomi up into Bethlehem. Nothing. And Naomi makes that clear to her. You've got nothing to gain by coming with me. Ruth's just not looking at it that way. She's not looking for what I can get out of it. The message I preached earlier this year about Gehazi, he's a what can I get out of it kind of guy. Well, that's not what it's about with Ruth. She's looking at Naomi and looking at her in terms of, I'm not leaving you. Why? Well, you look at Naomi, as you read the story, when she arrives back in Bethlehem, and the people all know her as Naomi, and she tells all of them, don't call me Naomi anymore. Call me Mara, M-A-R-A, which means bitter, afflicted of God. In other words, her situation has caused her to be quite a sad individual, as it would anybody, I think, if you lost your husband and your sons. That'd be a little bit difficult, Naomi. If you ever try to love somebody who's really down in the dumps, who's depressing, who complains and moans, who's got really bitterness down deep, they're not the easiest person to be around and to really love. I'm not picking on Naomi. She's had a tough go of it. She's had a tough run. And that's what Ruth sees. This is someone who I'm going to sow love into. They need to be loved. That's what they need. The only way they're going to get through this is by someone loving them, and I can do that. So Ruth, what are you going to get out of it? I'm not interested, because where I'm coming from, love is unconditional. That's our first point. As we go to the second chapter, we're going to read one verse, the second verse. Anybody who wants to read the second verse?
Okay, and Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me now go to the field and glean ears of corn after him whose sight I shall find grace. And she said to her, go, my daughter.
So basically what Gloria just read is Ruth going to Naomi and saying, I want to go out into the fields, I want to work out there, gather what I can, and I'll be back. So what we see, our second point, is that love works. And when I say works, I don't mean like love is the answer that works. No, love works. And I understand that there's people that can't work. I get that. So please don't misunderstand me. But people who can and don't, there's a kind of a love that's involved there, but it ain't for others. I'll tell you that. It's a love for themselves that I'm going to do what I want to do. And there's conditions involved to my love. And if I got to sweat, little water drops come out of my body, I'm not interested. Love actually works. Love goes, it gathers, not all the time. It comes back in the house and it rests. And what Ruth says, and for those of us who have worked in a workplace for any length of time, we can lose sight of this. She makes the comment, I want to go to work, and I'm counting on God's favor, His grace. In other words, love works with grace. Love goes out and works and counts on the grace of God to be present and to do the things that we can't do when I need grace in the workplace. God's right there working with me, the father and son business, like we said earlier. Whether it's in the house or out of the house, for Ruth. She's in the house, she comes and she rests in the house. She leaves the house, she goes and she works. And when she goes and works, that is where Boaz appears. Some people, I don't exactly make a lot of friends when I say something like this, but it's the truth. There's a lot of people that are looking for these ministries and all this kind of stuff. They wouldn't sow a dime or 10 minutes into anybody else's ministry, but they're looking for payback. And I'll tell you this, when you find a godly man or woman, you'll find someone who made a decision that it's not about me. It's about God. It's about sowing into something with absolutely nothing to gain. You see, Ruth goes up to a foreign land where she's got nothing to gain. All she wants to do is love a woman. She gets up there, and the love of her life is waiting in a place she never would have ended up if she wasn't operating in the position of, I'm going to sow into Naomi. I sow into Naomi, what do I get that I'm not even looking for? I get a Boaz. Think about it. Because there's a lot of times, I mean all of us, I'm talking about all of us, me included, that we're looking to get something, but but we haven't exactly sowed the right thing into the right person at the right place in the right time. Now that drives people crazy. They're looking for ministry. I'll tell you right now. I'm gonna sow into that guy over there in his ministry. Oh yeah, you will. For what I can get out of it? No. But what you will get out of it. It's just a very, very interesting principle when you look at this Ruth character and the kind of love that she demonstrates. When she meets Boaz in the field, he tells her to stay close. He tells her to keep her eyes on the field, basically. And then he talks about the fact that she's obviously operating under his wings. So if you stay close, is what Boaz is saying, stay close, keep your eyes on the field, you'll remain under the shadow of his wings, so to speak. Now there's different Bible scholars have different things to say about the wings. A lot of the Hebrew rabbis teach that what Boaz is talking about in the wings that the Old Testament, David writes, I don't even know how many Psalms about the shadow under his wings. They refer to the fact that he's talking about the wings of the cherubim on the mercy seat, that you remain in that place of being under those wings. But I also hear Jesus. You remember what Jesus said? I so long to gather you together as a mother hen, and uses a mother hen as an example to keep her chicks safe, warm, protected, taken care of. A mother's love. He's always talking about the father, but a mother's love. Do you know how Malachi prophesied that the Son of Righteousness would rise with healing in his wings? And Jesus is talking about a mother. I'm telling you, there's something that we've missed terribly in the Word of God and understanding. Well, a mother's love, because we're very patriarchal. A mother's love, the mother's wings, and in this case right here, it doesn't matter how we look at it, I don't think really. The point is that Boaz commends her because she's operating in a place under the wings of God, whether they're feminine, masculine, a mother, an angel, call it what you will. It's a great place to be. That's Boaz's encouragement in the field.